Hey folks, Gary here with Paramount Tactical Solutions, your source for guns, gear, training, tactics, all brought to you by Real World Experience. So in today's video, we're doing the ultimate bipod shootout. We're going over the 4 top tier bipods that are available today. We're gonna go over all the features. At the end, we're gonna do a flex test. We're gonna throw them on some guns. We're gonna test them out under real world conditions and see how they perform. So grab yourself a cup of coffee, watch this intro, and we'll see you back here in a minute. All right, we're gonna get right into this. So if you haven't watched my previous bipod comparison video, make sure you go check that out. I'll give you a little bit more context for what we're gonna be doing today. The 4 bipods that we're gonna be comparing today are the MDT Ckye-Pod, we have the Warne Skyline, the Atlas, and then lastly, we have the Accu-Tac SR5 Gen 2. All right, so the first one that we're gonna cover is the MDT Ckye-Pod, spelled with a C. I don't know what that's about, but it is what it is. Let's go over the individual features of this bipod. So first, this has the most range of movement out of any of the bipods when it comes to the ability to cant or to level your gun. This will actually spin around 360 degrees. You obviously can't do that when it's on your gun, but you can do it. And I believe if you tighten this screw, it will actually adjust the tension on that. And then we move down here to the legs. To extend the legs, all you're gonna do is press this button and pull it out. It does not automatically retract like some of the other bipods. As a matter of fact, one of my few complaints about the Atlas is kind of this feature. You have to move this individually. So just something to consider on that. So let's just go over the published specs. It says the weight on this is 21 ounces. This is the PRS model, which will go from 7.5 to 13 inches at the 90 degree. All of the different height adjustments that I'm gonna go over today will be at the 90 degree angle unless otherwise indicated. So at 90 degrees, this thing will extend from 7.5 to 13 inches, and we're actually gonna check that with the tape measure. And we're gonna check the weight on all these. I have a very accurate scale over here that we're gonna use, and we're gonna see if there's any disparity between the published specs and reality. So there's that. All right, now to change the angle of the legs, you pull down on this lever. Pull down on this lever, and you can go at a 45 there, and you can go at a full 0 degrees there, all the way back down to a 90. Unlike the other bipods in this category, you cannot move these legs back into a reverse 45 or 90 degree position. I think that's unfortunate because I will tell you, there's been many times where I've used the bipods in that configuration, both with the Atlas and the Accu-Tac. So just something to consider there. Now back here, on the back here, you can see there's 2 levers. If you push this in, it extends. This is how we change the stance or the footprint of those bipods. These by far, and I want you to look at that, right? By far have the widest footprint. And generally, when we're talking about achieving the best stability, we want to get as wide and as low as possible. And these allow you definitely get the widest out of any of these bipods. As you extend these out, you can see we get a lot of footprint there. And the stance on these are extremely wide. So pretty neat there. Now, a couple of the negatives I'm gonna go over on this, just kind of first impressions. The first thing that I noticed when I picked up these bipods is there's just a lot of play in all of the joints everywhere. And it just shakes. I mean, I don't know, you can kind of hear that, right? I'm really surprised by that. I expected all the pieces on this to fit much more tightly together. There's more play in all of the joints and every piece from one piece to the next than any of the other bipods by far. I don't know what that transfers to as far as performance goes, but I generally perceive that as to be a sign of not as good quality. I mean, when you got a bipod that shakes around or any piece of equipment that shakes around like that, where everything that's supposed to lock together isn't locking together super tight, again, that's just my perception. How that plays out as far as performance, you know, I don't know. Another thing that I don't like about this is the mount on here. So you can see that this is a Picatinny mount, but the way these particular this particular mount works is you got to slide it onto the Picatinny rail, either from the front or to the back. And then you have this piece right here, this just push button, which looks real convenient, and I guess in a lot of ways it is, but you push that and then you can just slide it onto your rail, move it up and down. But sometimes it's either inconvenient or hard because maybe a sling stud or some other things that are going on there that will impede being able to get that bipod on there, or any attachment that attaches like this. I'm not a fan of that overall. The other thing, when you do it like this, because Picatinny rails are not all equal, you have to create, again, more play in a mount like this so it doesn't mount up or lock in as tight. Like you'll see some of the other ones, they kind of clamp down on the rail and again, get rid of any kind of play or unnecessary movement in there. The other thing that I don't like about this is the fact that this is kind of a one bump deal. If this gets bumped, it potentially could slide up and down that rail or even slide off the gun itself. So I like the latching mechanisms on every single one of these other bipods much better, personally. Now for the price on these is $549. This is the most expensive bipod on the table. I'm a little bit, I have a little bit of sticker shock, just quite frankly. Holding this in my hand, this doesn't feel like $550. I'll just be honest there. Now they do have a Gen 2 of this particular model out. I don't have one of those to test, and maybe that's much better, but it's also $50 more. So that one is $599. So that's a lot of money to pay for a bipod. So if you're gonna charge $600 for a bipod, in my opinion, that thing better be perfect. I don't mind paying that much, but again, you got to show me where the value is. You still got to give me some value. And I just don't know. I don't know. We'll get up there and we'll test it, and I'll give you some more additional thoughts once we get this on the gun itself. As far as the actual specs go, let's kind of test those out. Collapsed states that it's going to be 7.5. And I'm not sure exactly where they take these measurements from. Typically, I like to take the measurements from the inside, but sometimes they're off a little bit. But generally speaking, it looks like it's about 7.5 inches from this tip to this tip. So hopefully you can see that really well. So that's collapsed. Extended out from the same point, this says it goes, the PRS says it goes to 13 inches. I'm only seeing 11.5. And again, I could be wrong, or I might have written down the wrong spec. I'll double check that, and through the magic power of video editing, if I am wrong, I'll put it up here and I'll double check that number just see if I wrote down the wrong number. So it says 13 according to what I wrote down. I'll double check that on the manufacturer spec sheet and get back to you on that. So there you go. Let's talk about its stance. So minimum, I'm gonna go from center to center here as much as I can. Minimum is 5.5. I didn't look at what the published was on that. The maximum is, we'll say 15.5. So 15.5 inches. Let's see this up here. 15.5 inches, approximately 15.5 inches on the maximum. So that's a super wide stance. That's without extended. Now let's extend these out a little bit further. Fully extended in both directions, both in width and length, we're looking at 22-inch footprint. So that's pretty phenomenal. Now looking at this thing, I almost feel like it's too wide, but again, I will test it out. I'm just telling you that's my initial thought on that, one way or the other. All right, as far as weight goes, let's pull up our scale over here. All right, the published weight on this is 21 ounces. Let's lay this up here, see where we're at. This says 1.4 ounces essentially, so we'll just say it's 20 ounces. So it actually comes in underweight of the published specs. All right, so that pretty much covers the MDT Ckye-Pod for most of its primary features. If I forgot something or there's something that you'd like me to address, make sure you leave those in the comments below. And while we're doing that, go ahead and stop what you're doing. If you haven't done so already, go subscribe, hit like on this video, and hit that bell to let you know when we have new videos like this, that when we're putting those out. So appreciate that. All right, so the next set of bipods I want to cover is the Warne Skyline. And when you grab this set of bipods, the first time you hold it in your hands, I mean, it just feels like a nice, solid, really well-made, robust set of bipods. Some of the nice features about this particular bipod is, again, we have these feet that extend out. We'll go over the published height specs as well as actually measure them to kind of see where we're at. But these pull out very nicely. And again, when you hit this button, they automatically retract. I'm a big fan of that. One of the features that this has, besides just being able to retract this one notch at a time, is you're supposed to be able to push this in and push it down. I think it takes a little technique because sometimes I can get it to do it and sometimes I can't. I'm curious to see what that translates as far as trying to do that from behind the gun. So we'll see how that works out. But that is really nice. And again, the length, the published length on this goes from 6.9 inches to 9.1 inches, and we'll see where we're at on that. These are a shorter set of bipods. I tend to like a little bit more length in my bipods. Now, if you're just shooting off a bench rest or anything like that, but what I'm looking at is possibly shooting off of uneven terrain and things like that, where I found that a longer bipod is a little bit more beneficial. But if all you're going to be shooting is from, you know, a very controlled range area or the prone or anything like that, you know, a shorter set of bipods will suit you just fine. But again, I tend to like a longer set of bipods. All right, to change the leg orientation, all right, all we're going to do is pull down on this latch, and there again we can go out to 0, 45, 90, negative 45, negative 90 towards the shooter, right? So these allow you to do that. I'm a fan of being able to do that. I've had to do that on numerous occasions, or at least I have found that canting the legs back toward me was the most optimal way to run that bipod in those particular conditions. So just another consideration there. The other thing that I really like about these bipods is this latching mechanism, right? So we have kind of a clamping or camming action that we have that attaches to the Picatinny rail. Right here we have a tension knob. You tighten this, it'll tighten up on that rail a little bit. But there again, you have this lever that you throw down, and then it has a lock. And that locking mechanism is really nice. And you actually have to pull up on that and then out on the latch, and then it comes loose. So I like that. I like that redundancy. I'm telling you folks, if you can lose something in the field, you will lose it. And having a little bit of redundancy built in like that, as well as being able to clamp down and adjust the tension that you're able to put on the rail itself, that matters a lot. I've seen where I take, you know, my bipod off of one rail. A Picatinny rail should be universal as far as the measurements, but they're not. So then I had to tighten it up or loosen it up to get that bipod to attach to that rail correctly. So being able to adjust that and being able to clamp down on it, I like that. It takes all that slack or any movement out of there. So that to me is a nice feature. The other thing that's really cool about these bipods, I find kind of neat, I've never seen this before, is the cant, and you have some cant and you have a few degrees of the ability to pan, maybe just a little bit left or right, not much there. But you can definitely cant left or right quite a bit, and it's on this ball joint, which I think is kind of cool and kind of a neat design, or from an engineering standpoint, it's pretty cool. So, and when you tighten this, and this is very easy to move. I really do like this mechanism. It's probably one of the best next to a 90-degree throw lever. It's really easy to adjust the tension so that you can control how easy it is to move that gun left to right, up and down. So you'll be able to easily get that gun level in most conditions right there. So I think that's really nicely built overall, and I like the engineering. And again, this tension knob is also really nice. All right, so let's get some measurements on this thing. So the factory specs say this leg collapse provides 6.9 inches of height. I'm getting 6'5". About 6'5". If we go from the inside, it's right at 6. If I go all the way to the top of the leg, it's still not 6'9", but that's definitely not, going to the top of the leg isn't additional height necessarily, unless they're going all the way to, they might be going, well, if we go all the way to the mount, then we're at 8. So that's that. All right, when we fully extend this out, we get right at 9 inches. You can kind of see that. If we go from the inside, it's under 9. If we go to the outside, it's right at 9. It says 9.1. I'm not seeing the 0.1, but whatever, close enough, right? The published weight on this is 16.5 ounces, or 1.5 pounds an ounce. This we have here 1.3 ounces. So that's almost 2.5 ounces heavier than the spec state. But again, maybe gravity is different in this particular region. I don't know. All right. The next set of bipods I want to cover are the Atlas, and these are the BT10 V8 bipod. This is probably one of the most prolific bipods you see out there next to Harris. It's definitely a great improvement over your standard Harris bipods. When these first came out, I thought they were just the coolest thing, and they are, right? It's from an engineering standpoint. We've been using the same bipods for like 30, 40 years, and there wasn't a lot of improvement out there until these came along. These were one of the first bipods that I saw that allowed for both pan and cant, right? So we can pan left or right a few degrees, as well as get that bipod or that rifle level from the shooting position. So those are really nice. The mounts on these are made by ADM. ADM makes some really good mounts. And again, we have a two-step process. Number one, we have a clamp. It has a camming and clamping action that allows us to tighten this thing up and get it on that Picatinny rail nice and tight without a lot of wobble or anything like that in between those Picatinny grooves. It's a two-step process. We have to push this button and then push that lever out. So there again, it has some redundancy built in there. These things aren't going to fall off on you. This right here allows you to adjust the tension with that clamping action right there. So a lot of cool features there. Again, we can pull these out one at a time. They don't retract. They're not spring loaded or anything like that. And one of the biggest problems that I have with Atlas is the fact that they flex. Once you put these on your rifle and you load up that rifle, you're gonna see some flex. And when you fire, it really does exaggerate that recoil. It takes you off of your target, takes more time and more effort to get back on target. And that is really my only complaint on these. These are great bipods and we still use them today, but they do have some flex to them and you just need to be aware of that and think about that when you're shooting. You can change up the different feet on these. As a matter of fact, if I remember correctly, the MDT feet and the Atlas feet are all interchangeable. So that's something else you might want to consider. If you're really trying to upgrade to something like this, but you already have a bunch of accessories for your Atlas, maybe one of the reasons that you might want to choose this. Although at $600 a bipod, you probably can buy some other accessories. I'm just saying. All right, so great set of bipods on the Atlas. Let's see how long they are. Again, we got the published specs. Says 5.2 to 9.6 inches. Yeah, I don't, again, it's always kind of difficult to know where they're measuring from. I mean, if we go from the inside, it's almost 6 inches. If we go to the outside, it's like 5.5. When we extend this out from the outside, we're at 9 and some change. From the outside, you know, we're at about 9.25. From the inside, it's about 9.25 as well. Again, I'm not sure exactly where they measure it from, but it looks pretty close to specs. That's really what it comes down to. All right, so let's look at the footprint on these. It's widest point going from the center of the leg to the center of the leg. We're right at 8 inches with it collapsed. When we extend these out, going from center of the bipod leg to the other center of the bipod leg, we're almost exactly at 11 inches. At 11 inches there. So, all right, so now let's get the real world weight measurement on this. Published weight on these is 12.7 ounces, definitely the lightest bipod on the table. That says 12.7, this is saying 13.2. So I think it's really close within kind of a margin of error, nothing crazy there. So, but it is by far the lightest bipods on the table, there's no doubt about that. All right, so the next set of bipods I want to cover are the Accu-Tac SR5s. There's a lot of great things about this. This is the Gen 2. I actually have a set of the Gen 1s here. I'll kind of go over some of the differences or the improvements from Generation 1 to Gen 2. But to extend these legs on these, again, all you're going to do is pull these out. You'll see on the Gen 1, and regardless if you're getting the Arca Gen 2 or the Picatinny Rail Gen 2, the specs on those are all the same except for the mount itself. So the legs are the same length and everything else. Now from the Gen 1 to Gen 2, you can see there's a pretty big difference in both the size of that foot as well as the length of that leg. The Gen 2 is definitely a big improvement, and there's a couple other features as well. These automatically retract. If you need them to retract, you just hit this button and they go right in. The other thing I've always loved about the Accu-Tacs is how robust they are. I mean, these things are just a beast. They're really well made. They're 8 ounces or so heavier than some of these other ones, but they are absolutely worth the weight in my opinion. I want something that's very durable and easy to use, and these are. Again, these go from 0 to 45 forward, 90 degrees, 45 toward the shooter, and then 0 toward the shooter. So I think that's an important feature. There's been several times where I've had to use that kind of reverse 45-degree option on the legs to shoot, and it gave me the most optimal shooting position. So again, I like that. Here we have the ability to cant left or right, all right? And all you're gonna do is tighten this down, and that gives you your tension. Now the old one, this was the thing that I hated about these on the old one. This silly knob right here was very hard to tighten. You don't get a lot of leverage on it. So this little throw lever was a very welcomed improvement, and they did a good job on that. These are very stiff, right? Even with the legs fully extended, you get no flex, no rebounding effect when you shoot. So that's one of my favorite things about that. I think, again, you know, when it comes to performance of a bipod, not having that flex, not having that rebounding effect, to me is a huge performance point. So just something else to consider there. All right, for the Arca rail, we have this mount right here, this kind of throw lever that you continue to tighten up that'll mount onto the Arca mount. On the QD version for the Picatinny rail, there's actually a camming lever here. There is no locking mechanism, which I would love to see on this, but again, you can get it pretty tight and it's pretty difficult to knock this out of the way because again, it's covered by the rail. So if anything, you're gonna get it knocked toward the rail, not away from the rail. But again, having a redundancy built in there would be nice. One of the things I forgot to mention was the retail price on the Skyline. So the Skyline price, the retail sticker is $399. So they're $400 bipods. This right here on the Accu-Tac SR5, these are $317. All right, so let's talk about the factory specs on the Accu-Tacs. Basically, from the factory, it says it's 22.96 ounces. I don't know why they didn't just say 23. 22.96754. We're gonna go like 6 decimal points, right? All right, according to the factory specs on this, it says it's 22.96. According to this scale, we have 22.9, so 23 ounces. All right, so that came in right in line with the factory spec. All right, let's get some measurements on this thing. I'm doing this backwards. All the other ones I did the measurements first and then the weight. I like to mix things up. I like to keep you on your toes a little bit. All right, so collapsed. We have this, we're at approximately, well, the factory spec says 8.25. I'm looking at, again, I don't know exactly where they're measuring from, but around 8. From the inside, again, yeah, we're about 8.25 from the inside, so I'll buy that. Thinned it out. We're right at 12, we'll say 11 3/4 of an inch. The factory spec on that is 11 inches. Either way, I think at a minimum it's 11.5. So you get a little bit more length than what it says coming from the factory. I'm making sure that this is nice and tight, and it is. The footprint on this collapsed. Get this straight, get the scale out of the way. Our minimum footprint is about 11 1/4 at 90 degrees. Fully extended, we'll just call it 15. All right, probably 15 1/8 or something weird like that. But it's about 15 inches fully extended. That's the footprint on this. And again, with these bipods, even when you got these extended, there's just no flex. Very heavy duty. The tolerances are nice and tight, so it is what it is. And that's why I've always liked these ever since I first shot on them. So, all right, so the next thing I want to show you, just as kind of a visual illustration or comparison, is what these look like when the legs are collapsed as far as a footprint goes. So here we have the Accu-Tac. The next widest on the list are the Atlas. You can see these are slightly, if you look at the feet, the Skylines aren't quite as wide as the Atlas. So the Atlas has a little bit wider of a footprint. It kind of goes in there. Now, just on its own, with everything collapsed and closed up, we have the Ckye-Pod has one of the most narrow footprint that there is. And you know, there are probably some shooting situations where it will be nice to be able to collapse those down and get the most narrow footprint possible. But once we spread these out, you know, then we have to change the order of things here by quite a bit. And again, once we can lengthen these out to get another kind of illustration of what the footprints look like on these extended. And there you go. It's basically coming on. I need a wider bench with these. Yeah, the width on these MDTs are pretty remarkable. That's for sure. All right, so the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take all these bipods, take them outside, put them on a gun, and test these under real world conditions. The first thing, and probably the most important test to me, is we're gonna do that flex test. We're gonna lean into it. We're gonna load up those bipods, both extended and collapsed, and see if or how much flex that we're getting out of those, and I'll give you my thoughts on that. The other thing is I'll also give you my impressions as far as working the controls and just kind of adjusting these bipods from behind the gun while it's on the rifle itself. So that'll be fun to do. So we'll see you outside in just a second. All right, so we're outside right here. We got the shooting bench, we got our 4 bipods. I'm gonna show you also how they install, and we're gonna do this quick because it's below 20 degrees out here right now. So anyways, let's get right after it. All right, folks, so the first one we're gonna do is the MDT, the Ckye-Pod here. See how easy this is to install. I haven't put it on this rifle yet. All right, so that goes on there pretty easily. Again, if you have something in front of or behind your rail system, probably not all that easy to get it on and off. So again, it's just another consideration. It is on there, there is some wiggle, but it's on there actually a lot more snug than I thought it would be, so that's good. All right, so let's get up here. All right, so there is definitely a little bit of flex, not that much, but actually more than I expected with these being completely collapsed. Manipulating this from the gun, behind the gun's not that difficult. It would be nice if these automatically retracted like some of the other ones out in the bunch. All right, so we definitely have some cant. We can actually get our bubble nice and level, and there is some pan, which I wasn't able. It's pretty tight and it feels good. All right, the pan on this is actually pretty good. And again, we got a lot of travel left and right. Let's extend these all the way out. Once we got this extended all the way out, there's definitely a lot more flex on there. Definitely more than I would want to shoot with. Because again, once you're loading that bipod up and that gun goes off, it's going to bounce back and it's going to exaggerate that recoil. All right, let's extend these all the way out as far as their widest footprint. I don't even know if the table is wide enough, shooting bench is wide enough. There we go. That's actually pretty cool. All right, it's, again, that right there is actually more stable. I do like that, but there's still a lot of flex in there. That's my biggest complaint with these. It's just like the Atlas, because the legs are so skinny at the inner portion of the legs, there's just a lot of flex. When you're leaning into this gun, you're loading up those bipods. So again, it's just something else that you want to consider. That's all. All right, so I'm gonna collapse these down and we will remove this. Pretty easy to remove. No big deal there. All right, so the next bipod that we're going to do is the Skyline. I did have to adjust the Picatinny rail. It was too tight, so I had to make some adjustments, but it was easy because it is toolless, so not a big deal, only took a second. Once we get it on there, that thing is on there rock solid. There's absolutely no wiggle in it whatsoever. And again, that's because of this clamping action that we have because of this type of mount. It's just, it's a superior way to mount a bipod. There's just no doubt about that in my mind. All right. All right, so loading this up. Right now the tension is set pretty perfectly. I got my bubble level and I don't feel any flex whatsoever in this particular one at all. As far as manipulating it from behind the gun, very easy. Everything about this bipod is just nice, smooth, and rounded over. There's no sharp edges, which when it's cold like this, you're pretty thankful for that. So everything's pretty easy to manipulate. Let's go ahead and extend these all the way out. All right, so that feels pretty good. I mean, there's a little bit of flex in there, definitely a little bit more than when it's collapsed, but when it's collapsed, it feels just like the Accu-Tac. I mean, there's just no flex in it whatsoever. So overall, I do like these bipods. They're pretty good. As far as removal, again, all we're gonna do is push this latch down. It's very easy to do so, then pull that latch up, and then they're just gonna come off just like that. Next one we're going to install are the Atlas. Did I mention it was cold out here? Because it is. Holy Jesus. So one of the things that you'll notice on the Atlas is even when they're completely collapsed, there's quite a lot of flex in there. And I think a lot of it is in this area right here. It's not necessarily that the legs are flexing, it's where this bottom piece mounts up to the mount itself. The leg locks lock into this little sprocket right there. There's definitely some flex in there.
Accu-Tac, as you probably know, they're pretty easy to adjust and make adjustments from behind the gun. Not a big deal there. Let's go ahead and extend these all the way out. All right, yeah, so this is where you see, by far, these are the most flexible bipod legs I've seen, especially fully extended. I would say they got a lot of flex, a lot of rebound going on, even when they're completely collapsed. But when they're extended, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. And hopefully you can see that in the video. I don't know if I've lined up the camera as good as I should have, but hopefully you can see that. There's a lot of flex in there. All right. As far as removal, again, this is an ADM mount. You're gonna push right there, let go, and then just rotate it off. All right, the last set of bipods we're gonna test are the Accu-Tac SR5s. This is actually a Gen 1, this is not the Gen 2, but nothing really gonna change as far as that goes. I don't personally own one of the Gen 2 and the SR5. I probably need to get one, but again, I have several of I think I have 3 sets of the Gen 1s, and the rest of my Gen 2s are all ARCA spec. So, I mean, I haven't needed to upgrade these. They still work great. All right. So loading these up, again, you know, extremely solid. That piece of wood down there is flexing more than the bipod is. So, yeah, so, you know, the Accu-Tac, when you load them up, they're extremely solid. Again, you can cant them, make sure that you can get the scope level. One of the things I forgot to demonstrate or talk about on the Atlas was that you can pan left and right to some degree. Probably about as much or a little bit less than the MDTs. And if it's important for you to be able to pan a tilt with a bipod, wait till you see the review that we're going to do on the FC5s. I'll have that up in a couple of weeks, so that'll be a fun review. And we're going to do it just on the FC5s. I'm going to go over all the features of the FC5. All right, so again, you can watch. I think I did a little bit more detail on this in our other videos, so go watch that. Let's extend the legs out. There's a tiny bit of flex when you extend the legs out. There's a lot less flex in these legs while they're completely extended than even the Atlas when they're completely collapsed. So very rigid, very robust bipods. All right, and to remove this, again, all we have is a throw lever. We just throw that just like that. And just like the Warne bipods, the Skylines there, you can adjust the tension on this clamp on that mount toolless as well. So it's just turning this, so that's a nice feature. All right, so that was a lot of fun. Let's go ahead and do a quick conclusion and review, if you will. Out of the new bipods, new sets, I really like these Skyline. These are great bipods. I think they are worth the money. These are a really nice bipod. I think they're very well engineered, very solid. I wish they made these a little bit longer so this could extend a little bit further. But overall, I think it's a smart design. It's a good bipod. I've told you what I think about the Atlas. The Atlas are great bipods. They were revolutionary when they were first built. I think they need to get rid of some of this flex out of them. That's just my opinion on that. But they're still a great bipod, and they're definitely better than the old Harris bipods when it comes to a lot of the different features. Very feature-packed bipod compared to the older generation. All right, so the other one, obviously, is the Accu-Tac. I'll be honest with you, it's still my favorite, and it's not my favorite because we're an Accu-Tac dealer. We're an Accu-Tac dealer because it's my favorite. You know, I did a lot of testing on bipods. I've done a lot of shooting over the years. I knew when we started this business and we started carrying retail items, which I never intended to. I wanted to train, right? That's all we wanted to do, but you end up really needing to get into some retail because of, you know, really what it comes down to is I get more gear questions asked to me of clients than anything else. So when I tell a client, hey, you know, I recommend this, the first thing they say is, well, why don't you carry that? So we started to fix that problem. So we do carry, and the other thing is that actually helps me when people are sending me lots and lots. I get hundreds of emails a week asking me about gear. And my response to all those now is, hey, look, go on the website. If it's there, that's what we recommend. So, you know, we do a lot of gear testing, and that was the result of carrying the Accu-Tac. I love the Accu-Tac. I think they're good American-made products. They're super durable. They're super well built, and that's just my opinion on them overall. Finally, let's talk about the MDT. I'm just gonna be honest with you folks. I don't see how this thing costs $549. I think that's probably my biggest issue with these bipods overall. I think these are $200 overpriced. I really do. At 549 bucks, I just don't see where they get that. Again, they're nice bipods and they got a lot of smart engineering here, but just the fact that everything is so loose, it doesn't feel like a $400 bipod. It doesn't feel like a $300. You know, I'll give it 300 bucks. I think this is worth 300 bucks. It's not worth 549 bucks. I don't think this is worth more than this or this. I really don't. This MDT at 549 bucks, man, I just don't see it. It has some cool features, but again, it's not $549 cool. I don't even think, just based on everything else, I don't think that this is a better bipod than, I think these and the Atlas are probably tied. All right. That's how I feel about those as far as overall performance. And maybe if I got out there and did 1,000 rounds on all of them, you know, maybe I'd feel differently. I don't know, but you know, that's how I currently feel, and you know, it is what it is. So that's my take on those. So overall, again, you're not going to go wrong with any of these bipods. I think you might spend a little too much money on these, but if you get one of these, this, or this, all right, you have great bipods. If you are going to pick up some Accu-Tacs, which I highly recommend, we'd love for you to purchase those from us. There's a link down in the description. And again, folks, I'm telling you right now, I'm not some shill. You know, I'm going to tell you my actual opinion. I don't care if I carry something or not. And here's the reality. There are lots of items that we used to carry that something else came out and is better, and we now carry that. We want to carry the best items out there, and I have to face my clients. I'm not a normal YouTuber that just sits here and talks about products. I have to face my clients at courses. I talk to them daily, and if I'm selling them garbage, I'm gonna pay a price for it, right? And my reputation, to me, is worth more than millions of dollars that you could give me to sell your product, whatever else. If somebody sends me a product, you're going to get an honest review out of me. I don't care. I'm not worried about the money. What I do care about is our reputation. And the same thing if we carry something. If something is better, I will tell you. I think I would give this out of 10 out of 10. This is a 9. Right? Because there's always room for improvement. And I think this is an 8. I think it's pretty darn close. If there was a little bit less flex once you extended them and they extended a little bit further, I would give them an even score, because both of these are really high quality products, both this Warne Skyline and the Accu-Tac. So after the last bipod video that I did, one of our subscribers that happened to be local, he sent us both of these. He called me up or contacted me and said, hey, look, I have both these bipods. Would you like to review them? I'll give them to you, and well, I'll let you borrow them for the review. And I was like, yeah, man, that'd be great. So that was Dustin. We really appreciate that. And I'm sure everybody that's watching this right now appreciates you letting us borrow those to do the review. All right, so I'm gonna clean this up and we're gonna go inside and warm my fingers up because I can't feel them at the moment, and we'll see you in a minute.
All right, folks, I hope that was helpful. I hope that was informative. I had a lot of fun doing it. It's always fun to mess with different bipods and see how they work under real world conditions. If I left something out or didn't cover something you wanted me to, make sure you leave that in the comments down below. Please hit like, hit subscribe, hit that bell so that you know when we have new videos out like this. And while guns and gear is always a lot of fun to mess with or talk about, what we're really about is training. So go to ParamountTactical.com, check out our upcoming training schedule, whether it's long range shooting, tactical carbine, handgun, or our medical courses. We'd love to have you come out. We'd love to meet you in person and do some training with us. So also check out our website as far as any of the gear on there are items that we've actually tested, we believe in, we stand behind, and we'd love to have your business. So until next time, stay armed, stay ready, and we'll talk to you soon.